This story happened to me around 6 months ago. I've been living in my current place for about 3 years now. It's a nice 2-bedroom apartment in an amazing location, but the suites were all dated as they were built in the late 90s. In the last few years, the city has had a massive economic boom, and people have been pouring into the city ever since. Because of this, I have seen the landlord staff start to do heavy maintenance on the apartments to bring them up to date and attract more people into them. My neighbor lived in his apartment for about 6 years before he ended up buying a house and moving out. When he left, the landlord immediately started redoing his apartment to bring it up to date. There are 2 stories in the apartment's layout, with my bedroom being on the 2nd floor. On the other side of my bedroom wall is the staircase of my neighbor's apartment. I had my room set up where my bed was right up against that wall. They were completely stripping his place clean. It was one of the first suites that they did such heavy remodeling to. For weeks, I would always see the workers over there, painting and redoing the floors. The days before this story happened were no different. I left and saw them doing maintenance on the kitchen, and when I came home from work, they were all gone for the day. Nothing strange in the slightest. The part that is unusual is what happened one particular night. I was up at around 1 a.m., watching TV in my room, when I suddenly heard someone on the other side of the wall, slowly walking up the stairs, and very obviously stopping halfway up. The person had stopped directly where my head laid on the other side of the wall. I could feel them listening to me breathing. I immediately turned the TV sound off and sat there, extremely quiet and still. I heard nothing for a few minutes, and after what felt like an absolute eternity, I heard the person start walking the rest of the stairs to the 2nd floor. My survival instincts kicked in. It was very obvious that someone was on the other side of that wall, listening to me. There was no way someone had already moved into the suite. I knew it was only a few days before when I saw the maintenance guy redoing the apartment's kitchen. I quickly got out of bed and went to a room where I had a better outdoor view of the empty apartment. I obviously couldn't see if there was movement in there from the window, but I had a good angle to see if anyone walked out. I sat there for around 15 minutes, just staring outside to see if there was anything suspicious. Nothing. I went back into my room and lay down in my bed again. I didn't play the TV. I just sat there, waiting to hear something again. I then started messing around on my phone for around 20 minutes in silence, until I heard movement in the stairs again. This time though, the movement didn't start from the top or bottom. The movement started in the middle of the staircase, meaning that the entire time I was sitting there in silence, this person was just on the other side of the wall, listening to my every move. This terrified and chilled me to my very core, and I decided to call the cops. I explained what was going on to the dispatcher, and they informed me that somebody would be out there very soon. I went back to the one room and watched out the window again. Only a few minutes later, a police car pulled up, and a cop got out to examine the building and apartment. He continued looking around and shining his light through the apartment windows. I heard a knock on the neighboring door, and then I heard him talking to someone. I couldn't make out what they were saying. I just sat there for a while, anxious and in anticipation. The officer walked over to my door and knocked. I went downstairs, and he informed me very nicely that somebody had just moved in there. I laughed and was completely embarrassed. I even said to the cop that it was a hell of a way to meet your new neighbor. I felt embarrassed, but more importantly, felt very relieved about the entire situation. I brushed off the whole thing as it just being late and my mind playing massive tricks on me. The next day, I went to leave my apartment when I saw something that made me stop dead in my tracks. I went outside and only took a few steps towards my car when I saw maintenance guys over there carrying out the old refrigerator. I was puzzled. I walked over to the apartment and I looked at the door, which was wide open. The kitchen was still being worked on, and not a single piece of furniture could be seen. I was legitimately speechless. I walked over to a maintenance man and said, "Didn't somebody move in here?" He informed me no one lived in there, and that the apartment wouldn't be ready for showings until at least 3 weeks. I ran back upstairs into my apartment and called the landlord. I asked her if somebody was staying there, and she said absolutely not. I then told her about what I experienced the night before. She was floored and told me that they would change the apartment locks immediately. She also suggested that I called the non-emergency line to the police department and informed them that no one lived there. I did just that, and they asked me to come down to the station. I told them everything about what happened. They were then able to confirm which officer came out to check on the situation to help identify the person who answered the door. The officer described the man in great detail, and I confirmed that I've never seen him around the apartment before. A search ensued around town for a few weeks, until the whole thing just sort of fizzed out, and then I stopped hearing about it. Over time, I began to see less and less patrol shifts in the parking lot. After that night, I never heard another thing in that apartment. Around a month later, an older couple moved in, and they are very nice people. When I saw the moving van pull up, I went out to introduce myself to them. But to be completely honest, the only reason I went out there was to see if any of them matched the description of who the cops saw. Not even close. I'm certain that the person who was in that apartment got away with it. I had an extremely hard time sleeping in the following weeks of that happening to me. I actually ended up moving my bed into the smaller second bedroom because it bothered me so much. I have no idea what the intention of that person was or what he was doing in the staircase, but it's easily one of the most chilling things that has ever happened to me. So, random man listening to me sleep, let's not meet again.
Please leave your message